You were born into a world that taught you to count your worth in paper, in numbers, in the size of your house, or the balance on your banking app. You were told to compete, to fight, to run faster than the person beside you, as if life were some endless race where the finish line keeps moving further away each time you breathe. You were taught to believe that the world is scarce, that success is limited, that money belongs only to a chosen few. And for years, maybe for your entire life, you believed that lie. But here is a truth that will feel strange the moment you hear it, almost offensive, almost unbelievable, and yet, something inside you will recognize it instantly. You were born rich. Not because of your family, not because of your environment, not because of the circumstances that shaped you. You were born rich because the power to create, to expand, to attract, to grow, was implanted in your mind the moment you arrived on this planet. Wattles said it clearly. There is a thinking substance from which all things are made, and you were born with direct access to it. But somewhere along the way, you forgot. It starts slowly, the way most tragedies begin. You wake up as a child full of possibility, full of imagination, full of creative force. You dream easily. You believe effortlessly. You imagine worlds and they feel real. You say you'll become something big and no one can convince you otherwise. But then the world speaks. Teachers, parents, television, society. They tell you that money is hard, that life is a struggle, that people like you need to work twice as hard just to survive. They tell you to stop imagining and get real. But Wattles said something different. He said the moment you stop imagining, you stop creating. And the moment you stop creating, you start competing. And the moment you start competing, you cut yourself off from the source that shaped the universe itself. So you grow up. You watch bills pile up. You see your parents argue about money. You hear phrases like, "We can't afford this, that's too expensive, life is hard, the world doesn't care about people like us." And you accept these sentences as if they were laws, as if they were carved in stone. And each time someone tells you what you can't do, that creative spark dims just a little more. You begin to live in survival mode. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What can I afford?" You stop imagining the life you were meant to live and start calculating the one you think you're stuck with. That is the tragedy of adulthood, not the loss of youth, but the loss of creative faith. This video begins here, at the funeral of your old self. Because the person you became through fear, anxiety, and limitation isn't the real you. The real you was buried under years of competitive thinking, scarcity beliefs, and emotional bruises you never healed. The real you is still there, waiting. And tonight, as you listen to this, something inside you begins to move, like a sleeping giant waking after years of silence. You weren't born to chase money. You weren't born to suffer. You weren't born to be trapped in anxiety, debt, or self-doubt. You weren't born to repeat the same day for 70 years and call it a life. Wattles said poverty is not a noble thing. It is a mental condition, a side effect of thinking in the wrong way, not a permanent sentence. He said that no one is kept poor by circumstance. People become poor because they think poor, feel poor, expect poor, and act poor. And none of that is your identity. It's just conditioning. Picture this. It's late at night. Your room is dark. Maybe you're sitting alone, scrolling your phone, feeling that tightness in your chest that comes from a life that doesn't feel like yours anymore. You feel behind. You feel stuck. You feel like you missed something important, like you're living half a life, like a version of you that never got to exist is still calling your name. You feel pressure, exhaustion, repetition, a life loop that never ends. Wake up, work, stress, sleep, repeat. But there is something deeper going on. Something most people never understand. That tightness you feel in your chest. It's not failure. It's not fear, it's not hopelessness. It is your creative nature suffocating inside a life built on competitive thinking. It's the part of you that knows you were meant for more, begging you to stop living like a prisoner of circumstances. You weren't born to live like everyone else. You weren't born to chase crumbs. You weren't born to play small. Wattles taught that every person is born with the capacity to create wealth because every person is born from the same intelligent substance that formed galaxies, oceans, and mountains. The universe didn't create you as an exception. It created you as an expression. And yet society convinced you that you were lesser, smaller, weaker, incapable. Imagine how different your life would be if someone had told you the truth on the day you were born. You came from abundance. You are connected to abundance. You can create abundance. You cannot be separated from the source of abundance unless you're tricked into believing you are. But that truth was hidden from you. And that's why you feel the way you feel today. You've been living like someone who has been exiled from their own power. Think about this. There are people out there who are no smarter than you, no more capable than you, no more gifted than you, yet they live in a completely different world. They attract opportunities, they multiply money, they grow businesses, they heal quickly, they manifest experiences that seem impossible, and the only difference between you and them is that they think in a certain way, the way Wattles described. They think creatively, not competitively. They think from abundance, not lack. They think from faith, not fear. They see the world as something that expands with them, not something they must fight against. You were born with this same ability, but you were never taught how to use it. When you walk into a room and think, "I don't belong here," that is poverty thinking. When you look at your bank account and feel panic, that is poverty thinking. When you think there's not enough for everyone, that is poverty thinking. When you compare yourself with others, that is poverty thinking. When you lower your dreams to fit your current circumstances, that is poverty thinking. Wattles said, "You cannot keep yourself poor if you think in a certain way, but no one taught you how, and that's why your life feels harder than it should." Right now, pause for a second. Not physically, mentally. Notice the truth that is unfolding inside you. Everything you ever wanted, freedom, money, peace, clarity, confidence, purpose, is not outside you. It's not in the future. It's not in the hands of someone else. It was placed inside your mind the moment you were born. The blueprint for wealth is already written within you, but the world convinced you that you must earn what you were already given. Tonight we begin the process of remembering, of returning, of reconnecting with the power that never left you, even when you abandoned it. This is not motivation. This is not positivity. This is not wishful thinking. This is law, spiritual law, mental law, creative law. The same law Wattles dedicated his life to teaching. And before this documentary ends, you will see that you were never meant to fight for wealth. You were only meant to allow it, to think in alignment with it, to feel in harmony with it, to act from it, because you were born rich. And nothing can change a truth written by the universe itself. If you truly want to understand what it means to be born rich, you must first understand the nature of wealth itself, not the version society sold you, but the version Wattles revealed. Because the world believes wealth is something outside of you, a salary, a house, a bank account, a lucky break. But Wattles said wealth begins as a thought, shaped inside the mind, formed in the invisible, and only later expressed in the physical. Most people never make this connection. They see money as a destination instead of an effect. They chase the shadow instead of the source, and then they wonder why life feels heavy, frustrating, and unfair. To break this illusion, you need to see the architecture of wealth through Wallace Wattles' eyes. He said everything in the universe, Every object, every opportunity, every idea exists inside a thinking substance, a creative field that responds to your thoughts as faithfully as a mirror reflects your face. That means you're not separated from abundance. You're immersed in it. You breathe it. You think through it. You create through it. And the moment you think a thought clearly, with purpose and emotion, the universe begins reorganizing itself to reflect that thought back to you. But here's where people get stuck. They think two thoughts at once, one of desire, one of fear, one of expansion, one of doubt, one of creation, one of competition. And the universe responds not to their wishes, but to their contradictions. Imagine someone wishing for wealth while obsessing about bills, wishing for success while replaying memories of failure, wishing for a new life while emotionally living in the old one. That is what Wattles called the divided mind, and nothing destroys creative power faster. To create wealth, Wattles said you must think in a certain way, not sometimes, not when you feel good, but consistently, and that certain way is the way of creative thought, not competitive thought. Competitive thought says, there's not enough. Creative thought says, there is more than enough, and I can create more whenever I choose. Competitive thought says, I must take from someone to get ahead. Creative thought says, I draw from the infinite. I don't need to take from anyone. Competitive thought makes you anxious, tense, insecure. Creative thought makes you expansive, calm, and aligned. Maybe you've lived your entire life in the competitive mode without realizing it. Maybe you felt jealousy when someone succeeded. Maybe you felt fear when money left your hands. Maybe you felt resentment when opportunities didn't come your way. Maybe you looked at someone else's life and thought, why them, not me? But Wattles said these feelings don't arise from truth. They arise from the illusion of separation. You can only be jealous if you think there's scarcity. You can only be afraid of losing money if you think you cannot create more. You can only resent someone's success if you believe there isn't enough success for you. When you shift into creative thought, these emotions collapse instantly, because you realize everything someone else has achieved is simply proof of what is possible for you. They didn't take anything from you, because the universe isn't divided like a pie. It is an ocean, and everyone has access to the water. Some people simply learn to swim earlier. Wattles emphasized something critical. The universe is not responding to your words. It is responding to your mental image. It is responding to the picture you hold inside. If your picture is blurry, your results are slow. If your picture is conflicting, your results are chaotic. If your picture is fearful, your results will reflect that fear. But if your picture is clear, the universe has no choice but to rearrange itself around it. Here's the part most people misunderstand. Visualization is not about daydreaming. It is not about fantasizing. It is not about wishing. Visualization is a command. It is an act of creation. When you hold an image in your mind with certainty, with emotion, and with repetition, you imprint that image onto the universal substance, and that imprint must move toward physical expression. It must. It is law. Think about the times in your life when you couldn't stop thinking about something you feared. Didn't it seem to manifest faster? Didn't you attract more of what you didn't want? That wasn't coincidence. That was the universe obeying the image you fed it. Now imagine what would happen if you fed it the image of what you do want with that same intensity, clarity, and emotional power. Imagine the shift. Imagine the speed. Imagine how quickly your life could realign. But there is a catch, a psychological catch. You cannot hold a new image with an old identity. This is the silent battle you face. You try to visualize wealth while seeing yourself as someone who struggles. You try to imagine success while remembering every failure. You try to imagine abundance while feeling unworthy. You try to imagine a better future while emotionally living inside a painful past. This is why change feels slow. Not because the universe resists you, but because you resist becoming the version of yourself that matches the vision. Wattles said you must act like the person you intend to become. You must think like them, speak like them, walk like them, expect like them, and most importantly, feel like them. You must abandon the old mental habits that kept you small. The universe cannot give you the life you want while you cling to the identity that created the life you don't want. This is the turning point of the documentary, the moment where you feel the inner conflict exposed. You begin to realize that your problem was never that you didn't know how to dream. Your problem was that you kept dreaming with a mind shaped by scarcity. Wattles used a metaphor. A seed cannot grow if it's planted in poisoned soil, and your mind, your inner soil, has been poisoned by years of doubt, fear, guilt, comparison, and survival thinking. But here is the miracle. The soil can be healed. It can be restored. It can be purified. And once it is, the seed, the vision, will grow with power. The antidote, according to Wattles, is a combination of three forces: faith, gratitude, alignment. Faith is not believing things will work someday. Faith is knowing they are working right now, behind the scenes, even when you cannot see movement yet. Gratitude is the emotional signature of abundance. Every time you feel grateful before receiving, you pull your desire closer. Alignment is acting as if the outcome is guaranteed, because in the universe, it already is. Imagine how differently your life would look if every decision you made came from faith instead of fear, from gratitude instead of anxiety, from alignment instead of confusion. Imagine what would happen if you started expecting good things with the same intensity you once expected the worst. Imagine waking up each morning with calm certainty instead of silent panic. This is what Wattles meant when he said, "You were born rich." He wasn't talking about your bank account. He wasn't talking about inheritance or privilege. He was talking about the inner mechanics of creation, the built-in ability to shape your world through thought. He meant you were born with the blueprint of abundance inside you, ready to activate the moment you learned the certain way. And now, you're learning it. Piece by piece, realization by realization, the illusion of lack begins to crack. You start to see that your life wasn't broken, your thinking was. You begin to understand that nothing outside you has power unless you give it permission. And a quiet truth starts forming inside you, subtle but undeniable. Maybe wealth was never something to chase. Maybe it was something to remember. There comes a moment in every person's life when the weight of their own thinking becomes too heavy to carry. You feel it long before you understand it. It shows up as exhaustion, not just physical but emotional and spiritual. A strange kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. A pressure in your chest you can't explain. A voice inside saying, "There has to be more than this." That moment is not a breakdown. It is the first sign of awakening. It is the moment your mind begins rejecting the life created by your old identity. Wattles said there is a point where a person becomes unfit for the life they're living, not because they are failing, but because they have outgrown the mental patterns that produce their current reality. The life you have now was built with the thoughts you used to think. And when those thoughts no longer match who you are becoming, your reality starts to feel tight, uncomfortable, suffocating. That discomfort is not punishment, it is evolution. The hardest part is that you've been conditioned to interpret discomfort as danger. So when you start to grow, you panic. When you start to dream bigger, you doubt. When you start to imagine a new life, the old one starts pulling you back. This is the psychological battle most people lose, the battle between who they are now and who they are meant to become. But Wattles gave you the map out. Ação eficiente. what he called efficient action, not working harder, not suffering more, not grinding until you collapse. Efficient action means acting from a place of power, not panic. It means doing what needs to be done today in the best way you can do it, without fear, without haste, without anxiety. It means each action becomes a declaration to the universe. I am aligned with what I desire. Most people act from desperation. You can see it in their eyes, hear it in their voices. They chase opportunities instead of creating them. They beg the world for crumbs instead of expecting their rightful share. They act like prisoners of circumstances instead of commanders of thought. And the universe responds with more of the same, more chaos, more delays, more struggle. But when you act efficiently, something shifts, subtly at first. You begin to notice small signs. Something goes right unexpectedly. Someone reaches out with an opportunity. An idea comes out of nowhere. Someone mentions exactly the thing you needed. A door opens that shouldn't have opened. This is not luck. This is alignment. Wattles said that when you connect your thought with faith and gratitude and then act efficiently, the universe becomes cooperative. Reality bends quietly in your favor, and you feel it. Something inside you clicks. You start to walk differently, steadier, calmer, more certain. Your mind becomes clearer, your decisions sharper, your emotions lighter. And suddenly, you're no longer fighting your life, you're guiding it. Let's talk about identity, because Wattles' teachings make one thing painfully clear. You cannot create a rich future with a poor identity. You cannot attract abundance while seeing yourself as someone who struggles. You cannot receive more while believing you're worth less. Think of your identity as a thermostat. No matter how cold or hot the environment becomes, the thermostat forces the room back to its programmed setting. Your mind works the same way. If your internal identity says, "I'm meant to struggle," you'll sabotage success. If your identity says, "I'm not worthy of wealth," you'll lose money as fast as you gain it. If your identity says, "Good things don't happen to me," you'll unconsciously block opportunities. The universe cannot override the setting you've installed. This is why Wattles insisted that you must think of yourself as the person you intend to become. Not someday. Not when life gets easier. Not when the money comes. Now. Immediately, today. Picture the version of you who has already achieved everything you want, the version who moves with certainty, who wakes up with peace, who makes decisions without fear, who is not intimidated by the world because they know they can create their own. Feel that person, see them, step into their mindset. Because according to Wattles, the moment you unite your mind with that identity, the universe begins rearranging your circumstances to match it. You don't wait for the money to feel abundant. You feel abundant and the money follows. You don't wait for opportunities to feel confident. You feel confident and opportunities appear. You don't wait for proof to have faith. You have faith and proof rises around you. This is the certain way. This is the creative mindset. This is the original blueprint you were born with. But let's address the biggest enemy of creation, doubt. Doubt is the silent assassin of dreams. It kills possibilities before they ever take form. It convinces you to shrink your vision. It makes you question the timing of the universe. It whispers, "What if it doesn't happen?" And if you listen long enough, doubt becomes your identity. Wattles said something revolutionary. Doubt is disbelief in the intelligence that formed the universe. Think about that. To doubt yourself is to doubt the very source that created stars, oceans, and galaxies. How could it guide everything in existence except you? When doubt arises, it is a sign, not that your dream is impossible, but that your old identity is dying. Doubt appears when you approach a new level of expansion. It is the last defense mechanism of the version of you that cannot exist in the life you're building. If doubt shows up, it means you're close. And then there is fear. The twin brother of doubt. Fear is not the enemy, but a compass. Fear shows you exactly where your old identity ends and your new identity begins. It marks the border between who you are and who you're becoming. When you fear taking a step, it's because that step belongs to your next level. Wattles taught that every person must choose daily. Will you think in the certain way or the old way? Will you act from creation or from competition? Will you move from faith or from fear? This choice is what decides your destiny, not luck, not talent, not intelligence. The way you choose to think is the blueprint of the life you will experience. Now imagine this. You start applying the principles daily. You visualize your future clearly, with emotion. You speak as if your vision is real. You feel gratitude for it before it arrives. You take efficient actions aligned with your desire, and slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things begin to change. You wake up one morning and feel lighter. Your mind isn't racing like it used to. Your decisions become clearer. You stop overthinking. You stop forcing things. You stop trying to control outcomes. You begin trusting the process. You begin trusting yourself. You begin trusting the universe. This is the first sign of internal wealth, peace. The world taught you that wealth begins with money. Wattles taught that wealth begins with inner alignment. When your mind and heart move in the same direction, everything else follows. And then something beautiful happens. You start attracting things you never expected, relationships that support you, ideas that inspire you, opportunities that elevate you. People begin to treat you differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently. You walk into rooms differently, not because your circumstances have changed, but because you have changed. This is when the universe whispers back, you finally remember who you are. And this is only the beginning. And now we arrive at the moment everything shifts, the point in your journey where the truth finally lands, not as an idea, but as a conviction. Up until now, you've been waking up. You've been remembering what the world made you forget. But this final part, this is where you reclaim what was yours all along. This is where you stop surviving your life and start creating it. Because the greatest secret Wallace D. Wattles ever revealed is simple, almost disarmingly simple. You were never separate from wealth. You only lived as if you were. You acted as if you were. You thought as if you were. But the moment you reconnect with your creative power, you realize something overwhelming, something that shakes the very foundation of your past beliefs. You were born rich because you were born with the power to choose your thoughts, and your thoughts choose your reality. Everything you were taught about money, success, opportunity, and luck was incomplete. People told you wealth belonged to the gifted, the fortunate, the chosen, the ones born in the right family. But Wattles said that's not how the universe works. The universe does not reward bloodlines. It responds to thought lines. It responds to images, emotions, intentions. It responds to your inner state, not your outer circumstances. The truth is that the people you admire, the ones who built extraordinary lives, weren't special. They simply understood something most people never learn. Life doesn't respond to who you wish you were, it responds to who you believe you are. That belief is everything. It is the beginning and end of your destiny. Right now, in this moment, you're standing on the edge of two realities, the one you've been living and the one you were meant to live. The old reality is shaped by fear, scarcity, survival, doubt, a reality where you compete, chase, stress, compare, shrink, settle. A reality where you wake up tired, fall asleep anxious, and feel like life is happening to you instead of through you. The new reality, the one that has been calling your name, is shaped by faith, gratitude, creative power, and inner alignment. A reality where you don't chase, you attract. Where you don't beg, you expect. Where you don't shrink, you expand. Where you don't hope, you know, and the only bridge between these two realities is your decision, the decision to think in the certain way, the decision to embody the version of you that already possesses what you desire. You aren't waiting for the universe. The universe has been waiting for you. Wattles taught that once you hold a clear vision, backed by unwavering faith and constant gratitude, and act efficiently each day, the universe is mathematically obligated to deliver the physical equivalent of your mental picture. It has no choice, because thought is the original force, and the universe is the servant of thought. You don't need to understand how it will happen. You don't need to calculate the route or predict the timing. Your job is not logistics. Your job is alignment. You think the thought, you feel the emotion, you take the action you can today, and the universe handles the rest. But here's the part people avoid. The universe will not deliver a rich life to someone who keeps choosing poor thoughts. It will not deliver abundance to someone loyal to their own limitations. It will not deliver expansion to someone committed to fear. This is the moment of responsibility. The moment you stop blaming your past, your circumstances, your family, your history, your mistakes, your fears. This is where you realize that the greatest form of wealth is not money. It is power, the power to shape your world from the inside out. When Wattles said, "You were born rich," he meant that your mind is the original factory of creation. He meant that your ability to imagine, focus, believe, and act is the most valuable asset in the universe. He meant that wealth is not something external you must search for. It is something internal you must unlock. Think about your life from this new vantage point. Look at the struggles you endured. Look at the fears you carried. Look at the limitations you believed were unbreakable. Every single one of them was a story, nothing more. A story created by someone else. A story you never chose consciously. A story you can now rewrite because you are not the stories you inherited. You are not the beliefs you absorbed. You are not the fears your past taught you. You are the creator, the architect, the thinker, the one who feels the future into existence. Wattles said that your only real obligation is to become the greatest, most expansive version of yourself, not because it makes you better than others, but because it honors the source that created you. When you live in fullness, you inspire others to rise. When you live in abundance, you become an example of possibility. When you think creatively, you help the world evolve. When you live in faith, you become a beacon of strength. When you act efficiently, you turn intention into evidence. And now the question becomes, what will you choose? Will you return to the old world of fear and competition? Or will you step fully into the creative world you were born for? The universe is listening. It listens to your emotions, your beliefs, your expectations. It listens not to your words, but to the frequency behind them. And the moment your frequency shifts, your life must shift with it. So tonight, right here, right now, you make a decision, not to try, not to hope, not to wish, but to be. To be the version of yourself you were always meant to become, to think in the certain way, to visualize clearly, to feel deeply, to act efficiently, to embody abundance before it arrives, to move through the world with quiet, unshakable faith, because that is what it means to be wealthy. True wealth is not money. It is alignment with the creative force that makes money inevitable. And as this documentary ends, something inside you changes. Something subtle yet powerful. A shift in identity, a release of the old self, a remembrance of the truth you once knew instinctively, the truth you were born with. You were never poor. You simply forgot you were rich. But now, you remember, and the universe remembers you. If this message opened something inside you, if it reminded you of who you really are, if it awakened a part of you that's been quiet for too long, then don't keep this transformation to yourself. Take a deep breath, place your hand on your heart, and listen to what comes next. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment sharing the moment the truth clicked for you. And if you want to support this mission of awakening people, you can buy me a coffee. Your gesture fuels this work and pushes this message forward. Now go. Walk into your life not as the version shaped by your past, but as the creator of your future. Think the thought, feel the feeling, act with faith, move with gratitude, live in alignment, because this is the beginning of your new reality. You were born rich. And now, it's time to live like it.